Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nick Simino. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Computer Information Network and Cloud Computing departments here at Community College. And this is the September edition of our Career Speaker Series. We give these talks to help students figure out what they might be interested in doing in their careers and to hear stories from seasoned professionals about how they got from where you might be to where they currently are, to help paint that picture of what a career in IT and technology looks like. Today's guest is Christopher Douglas from Xbox and Microsoft, and he's going to tell us about how he got to where he is. We're going to go through kind of his story, and then we're going to have time for questions at the end, so you can feel free to put those in the chat, and we will handle your questions. But most of all, thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris to introduce himself and tell us about what he's been doing.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it very much. So, as Nicholas said, I am Chris Douglas. I'm the business program manager for Xbox Game Studios Game Camp. And that program is built as a diversity, equity, and inclusion program where we allow everyone from all walks of life to be able to come in and just help to try to find and amplify their voice in the gaming industry. But we also do take some time to target and focus traditionally marginalized groups because our mission at Game Camp is to prove that extraordinary talent resides everywhere. So we want to be able to have this program go through and open it up to the subject matter experts that sit inside of Xbox Game Studios, and then share our tools, resources, and knowledge while everyone who comes through Game Camp kind of builds a network within Xbox Game Studios of those professionals, because the industry is a very small but large industry, if that makes sense. Most people is going to be 2 to 3 degrees of separation from anyone in the gaming industry. So being able to build that network of people is definitely is beneficial for you. And Game Camp is not meant to replace traditional university or coursework. So all the stuff that you learn at Delgado is critically important to you building and enhancing your skills. But whenever we do a Game Camp, it's anywhere from an 8 to 12 week immersive learning experience, just to kind of help you give skills and to demystify the gaming industry and what the gaming industry is, for all groups. And I had the pleasure of, being able to run that program. It's a very humbling experience. Chris Morrison and a big team from Delgado has been able to come through the Game Camp program. It's been a great opportunity to get a chance to know them, know the local community of game developers. For everybody who can see on the video, Chris has a hoodie on, so shout out to Chris wearing the hoodie today. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for everyone to like really build a community here. And one of the last main focus of this is, and we'll talk about this later in my career talk, of how I got into the industry. One of the big focuses that we want to make sure that people who live in the cities where we do Game Camp are able to stay there with their friends and their family with the support system that they have and continue to find work in that. The industry is changing and growing. There's a lot of remote work, but there's also a lot of industries or studios that are in the state of Louisiana as a whole, that you can kind of find work and be able to do the things that you want to do, but also be where you are, be where you want to be, and be connected to our great city and our great state, without having to jump ship and go to LA or New York or Redmond, Washington State, where Microsoft campus is. So that's the big part of what we do at camp. We want to make sure that we are. It's not necessarily discovery, because we're not discovery. You're not a thing to discover. It's more about amplification. So we're just creating awareness, additional awareness for you around the things that you do, the skills that you have as an artist, an engineer, a program manager, a marketer. Those are the things that we want to be able to do and help connect dots with people in the community studios locally in that space. So a little bit about me. Chris Douglas, of course. I'm born and raised here in New Orleans. I went to St. Augustine High School and I went to Xavier University for college. The entirety of like my life, I grew up like in a traditional sense, like the way that most people in New Orleans will grow up. Everyone's like Mardi Gras is a big thing. All those things are great. But since I was like 5 years old, I wanted to like be in the video game industry because I wanted to know what made Mario jump. That was like the thing that really sparked it. So when I first started, like I get this NES, I got a controller, and I was like, this is all cool, but why when I press this button it makes that man jump? What's going on between the controller and the system and the TV that's making these things happen? And so my grandmother ran the Head Start program here in New Orleans for a while. She's like, that boy always has like this innate ability to just look at those things. So I always wanted to know about technology and then gaming, and that always sparked my interest. And so I always looked at like business. I read every magazine, that was available at the time. Yes, there was a thing called magazines. That's how old I am now. Yeah, but you would go and I would buy magazines or subscribe to magazines and read all about it. I wanted to know about the business of gaming. I wanted to know about the all of the terminology that they would use in gaming. So I tried to build those skills very early. But I also went to a pretty prestigious high school for sports at St. Augustine High School where I played basketball there, and that was like the main focus. So, being in like watching anime and then playing video games and stuff 20 years ago was not as cool as it is now. So being an athlete and doing that, it was like a weird dynamic of, playing basketball and wanting to do that, but also wanting to be in the gaming industry. So a lot of people at that time, especially like this for face value, being like a black man growing up, trying to get into the tech industry was a little bit more difficult. So, um, my family would always say, "Well, Chris, you can go and play basketball. You're playing at one of the best high schools in the state of Louisiana. Y'all have a lot of things." They won the national championship the year before I went there, my eighth grade year. We won state championship my senior year in 1999. And I always give this stat as face value. So at the time, playing basketball, and I went to Xavier to play basketball for a little bit of time as well. But there's 15,000 NCAA just Division One men's collegiate athletes, and there's three divisions across college basketball, and they take 60 people in the NBA draft. So that's a 0.04% chance of me making it to the NBA. And my parents still believe that I would make it to the NBA before I would make it in as a game developer. So whether that be like their own personal bias or they thought they were protecting me, like that's the things that people always just deterred me from trying to do. So I always wanted to like prove everyone wrong, and that was some of the things that like fueled the instance of me wanting to continue to do my path in my career in gaming. So um, in 1999, at Xavier, I played, like I said, I played one semester. I didn't play a full year at Xavier, and I was just like, I'm just tired of playing basketball. Like I'm not doing this. I was a little bit arrogant, and the point like I'm better than half of these guys that's in front of me, and I'm not playing, so I'm just done, right? So I just went through this point of time. I think that I used that as an excuse, but I just really wanted to do stuff in games, and so I began to play Halo professionally at the time. So this is 2001. I started like this is not as pretty as y'all think that the Halo professional scene as it stands currently. So um, in the instance of you had to bring your own TV, you had to bring your own Xbox, you had to bring your own controller. You were responsible for all your own equipment. You were responsible for setting up like you got literally 1 minute to set up your system, everything, make sure your settings were tight, and then you went straight into whatever your game was. And so, we did that for a while. We packed our stuff in my little 94 Sentra and we drove around the country, playing at different things. There was no game battles or stuff or anything in that instance yet because like online was still very early in its infancy. So everything was just land at that particular time, and we just kept playing and kind of moving through the ranks. And then eventually Halo 2 came out. It's an online game. We started going out more and more, but at this time like I'm 22, right? And all of these 16 and 17-year-old kids are just like smacking me and my team because it's we're all like older at that point. So even though like I said I went to school for computer science and engineering, and we wanted to be able to like figure out a way to get in the industry, like playing games professionally was my entry point into the business side of what it was. And so I just wanted to be able to get to a point where as I got older, my fiance is pregnant at this point. I'm about to be 23 years old. We got 17-year-old kids, like I said, literally beating us every single time. I think the highest we finished there, we finished 16th in one tournament, and then we finished ninth in a regional tournament. So we got put on as like a reserve for like a major. But the other teams like didn't fall out or anything happened. So after that, I was like, we just got to find like work to do, man. We got to find like real jobs at this point, quote unquote real jobs. Um, and then 5 months later, everyone, like most of the teams that we actually could beat, were signing $250,000 sponsorship contracts. So it was like, oh man, like we just missed this opportunity to do such. But it wasn't going back. That 5 month hiatus that we took, even trying to go back in that 5 months and place, you couldn't even place anymore. Like the skill gap is so large, in professional games. So from there, like I started working. I got recruited actually to work as a manager at GameStop. And so that was another good opportunity for me to, hey, let me go and work selling video games. I can see the backside of it. Maybe they'll let me get into like marketing for the company, or they'll let me do something else. I always had this North Star of using that opportunity to propel myself. And so I worked at GameStop for about 6 or 7 years. I was we had a committee called, it was the Committee for Technological Advancement. And one of the ideas I had at the time was for us to use something that was called Red Dog, which was now known as Microsoft Azure. And I wanted them to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool in the stores if someone came in and was able to give their gamer tag, and they can just buy a game digitally and then have it like have the entitlement just kicked to their system via this thing. And this thing that I'm reading about Azure seems like it can be like the thing. And they kind of were like super hesitant about it because it was brick and mortar at the time. And they were like, yeah, that's probably not best for our business model. We're doing a lot of things physically. And in the PC space, that works because we can sell stuff there, but we just don't see consoles going in that route. And then I look at it always now and be like, maybe I was on to something a little bit back then. This is, a little piece there. But I did enjoy my time, at GameStop. I got a chance to really understand like the market, how gamers would consume, their content, how they what drove them to playing these types of games, what design aspects and things that they liked about games. So we would have conversations without them even knowing, like they're having design level conversations at that time without even really knowing about it. So I always tried to help them, like, hey man, you should think about going into games. You got a great design mind. And it's always just me just kind of help put everyone wanting to get into games and do the things that they loved and they cared about. And so eventually though, I just got to the point where I felt like the skills, I wasn't being promoted the way that I should be. Like as most people go through in their careers, I reached the ceiling, like as far as like not necessarily like a skill gap, but I reached the ceiling where I was like, I don't think I'm gonna grow anymore here. And I don't think that the gaming industry is for me. Like I haven't been able to had a chance to get into it, so I'm just gonna go do something else. So again, I got recruited to go from there to AT&T, where I was a small business manager. AT&T for about 5 or 6 years. Again, and that was cool. Like I loved, at that point I had a lot of free time to like just be a consumer, just play video games. I probably spent like no lie, like 2,000 hours in Battlefield 3 at that time. At that time, still like trying to find something to scratch like the competitive first person shooter itch that I still had. Um, and so I was a Windows specialist as well. So I specialized in all of the different things that happen inside of Windows. So anything that we did, Windows related, Windows phones related, I took a lot of trainings for it, and then I became a Windows certified specialist. And eventually that led to me being able to be recruited at Microsoft as a learning specialist. And then so I did that for 7 years or so. And that's really the thing that like really propelled me to be where I am, because I got to be close to, at Microsoft, I'm close to Xbox, but I'm not in Xbox. And so I was able to work in the retail stores here in New Orleans. Started off in Baton Rouge. I drove there every day, 70 miles one way, 140 miles. I was just super excited to be working for Microsoft, because ever since I was 12, like I was like, I saw the stuff that they were doing. I was like, this is all cutting edge stuff. I want to work for Microsoft. And then at 20, when they launched Xbox, I'm like, I want to work for Xbox. And so that was always the thing that was in the back of my mind. But I just like I said, the life happened. I kind of like deterred away from that. Had a kid, got married, got divorced. Tried to do something to be a responsible adult. Um, and it just led me back to where my, like the dream company, working for Microsoft. And as a learning specialist, my job was basically to build bespoke solutions and custom solutions for anyone that was a small to medium business, um, a K through 12 community college or university. Um, and I love doing it. Like I had an opportunity to really connect with the community. It was super fulfilling because I got a chance to go to all of these different places and talk about, technology. And full circle, how all of this stuff works now. My dad used to work at Delgado. He taught print shop at Delgado. In building 10, there is it's like IT department and everything now, but that used to be the print shop. And growing up, like I said, I went to St. Aug. Even before then, when I was in elementary school, I spent a lot of my time in building 10, doing my homework, in the UC. Um, Funny enough, I was like 12 or 13, and like I also played Street Fighter professionally for a little while, but I would always go to the UC, and I'm like, 13, 14, and it was Marvel superheroes or Street Fighter. They had a machine in there and a pool table and stuff, and I would beat all of the college kids, and they would all like basically not necessarily bully me, but they would be making like baby noises and stuff because they was like, we just got to get this kid out of here, bro. He can't do this stuff to us. But I had a good time, and I got to meet a lot of cool people, and that's like my connection to Delgado is awesome. And like I said, that was able to have me come full circle because I was able to then Delgado bought some Surface devices from Microsoft, and I was able to come there and do the training for the teachers. I did that, once a year for their convocation every year, and it felt so good to be able to give back in a space that I spent a lot of my time. And a lot of like meeting a lot of students who spend a lot of their time there. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to figure out what my next steps are. So I always love being and doing things for Delgado because it's a special place for me. It's connected to my journey and my history. Uh, and that led to, like I said, me doing those things for Microsoft, but it still was something missing. So I wanted to be connected to like the schools that were here and then help them with like gaming related things. So we would bring Surface kits, which is just like 30 Surface devices. We would bring them to all of the different Title I schools across the state, and then let them learn like Microsoft Make Code or code.org and teach them STEM related things. But then we would also bring Xboxes there, and I started doing like workshops on like how to be a Mixer streamer when we had Mixer, and how to get into the gaming industry, how to be a professional, esports player. So I just did all of these different things, and that kind of built my reputation in the city without me knowing. And 2020, like right before the pandemic, um, I met Peter Zetterberg, who was not my boss, through Grady Fitzpatrick, who worked at Greater New Orleans Inc. And he was like, "Hey, Peter, like I know you wanted to kind of do this game camp thing, but we have somebody locally that's doing a lot of work, and he works for Microsoft." And so I was able to meet Peter. I ended up being able to come on in a volunteer capacity for game camp and do work. So I had my main 40-hour work, job that I was training everybody for 40 hours a week. And I took this game camp thing on as a volunteer, and I basically worked another 40 hours. So I worked, 80 hours a week doing it, but it fulfilled me more than anything else. I met Chris Morrison. I met a bunch of different great independent developers in the New Orleans area. I got to see some of the things that they were doing, and it was like an opportunity to really build a game development community here in New Orleans. So people wouldn't have to go through the thing that I went through, like, hey, you want to be in games and you got to go and move somewhere, you got to do something else. And it just so happened that Matt Finley from An Exile Studio or Entertainment he wanted to be here. So he brought his studio here, he set up shop here. And that's how Peter Zetterberg was able to come in and see the city. And Matt just basically as an implant gave him the idea like, hey, this is probably the biggest place of inspiration for the arts, like music, food, entertainment, architecture, whatever, like you name it, like anything that's a creative space. New Orleans is probably the epicenter of it, or we started something, or a trend is happening because of us, and we just don't get our due for it. And so it was a great opportunity for all levels for us to be able to come and do game camp here. And once game camp was done, like it was a pilot, so they were just testing it out in the beginning for the first one. From there, I was able to go. I got offered a job by Matt Finley to come work at an Exile. So I worked at an Exile Studios from there, and I was the office manager and production assistant. And so for Wasteland 3, so my name is in the credits for Wasteland 3, the Battle for Steeltown DLC, Cult of the Holy Dead Nation DLC. And in that year, I learned more about the video game industry than I have ever learned, like in my life. Everything that you think you know about games from reading like publications is false. Like the work is very hard. Um, a lot of times when you're like, I don't know what the engineer was thinking when they did that. They didn't know what they were thinking when they did that. Like they just did the best possible thing to make this build of the game work, and to fix whatever the bugs that were going to happen inside of it. It's a lot of as a producer, it's everyone who's in game production will tell you it's like glorified like cat wrangling, because you got to go and talk. It's like you have the animators and then the engineers and the artists and the audio managers and engineers and the like system design and then gameplay and level design. And so everyone has their idea of what they want this thing to be. And your job as a producer is to be the person that makes that line a through line. It's like threading 40 needles, what I'm saying, at the same time. So um that's when I just learned a lot about the industry, learned about art, learned about animation, learned about those things. And it was like dream come true for me because I was finally working in the industry, but something once again was still missing because at this point in time, like I'm 40 years old, right? And I was like, it took me 20 years to get into the game industry. It was a long, hard road, but I had so much fun, and I would much rather help amplify the voices of all of the people who came through game camp and this new generation of creators. I would rather do that than to be selfish and just continue to work, in the dream job, working at home at a game studio on, like an isometric turn-based RPG with some of the best creators literally in the world at an Exile. And so eventually like game camp became a full thing, and I was asked to apply again. I was super nervous. It's probably the hardest rounds of interviews that I've ever been through. But at the end of the day, like they picked me, and I was super happy. And I've been doing the game camp thing ever since. So at this point now, we've done in 2.5 short years, we've done 5 game camps, and it's getting ready to do 6. So we've done New Orleans in 2020 to 2021. We did Korea shortly after that. We did New Orleans again earlier this year, and then we just finished Atlanta um, 3 weeks ago on September 7th. And then we're doing Korea again on in October. So it's been just like a wild ride inside of being able to connect with so many different creators in these different places across the city, state, and then country and world, to be able to really just help them find their way, help them find their space. And the best thing about this whole thing is just keeping people like involved and making sure that they know this is about like basically building your confidence. There are a couple of people who have gotten work, whether it be inside of Xbox Game Studios. We have people that got hired at like Pixel Dash is a local game developer based in Baton Rouge. So we have people that went through camp that got hired at Pixel Dash, or they got hired at in Exile. We had some people work for Mojang, they work for 343, and then other various places across the industry. We have people that are working there, and they always like, "Oh, Chris, man, I wouldn't be here without you." And it's a humbling thing, but at the same time, like you definitely probably would have still been there. You have the skills to do so. Like maybe we just built your confidence or reaffirm that you should be, working in the industry or help make the connection for you to get to where you were easier. But if you land a job in the industry, that just means that you should have been there anyway. And so my big thing is trying to make sure that everyone here on this call, as you're going through and you're trying to understand what your career is, you're trying to figure out, what are your next steps? How do you get to that space? Like for me as a kid, like I just literally like going from reading magazines and doing all this work, and a lot of stuff that I did was self-taught. As YouTube videos and stuff came out as I got older, like I just spent a lot of time just self-teaching. But you're in a space at a college where there's a dedicated program to video games. right? And so you can really find your niche. You can find the thing that drives you, that you're passionate about, and you have great people at this college around you that are willing to help you. Putting on things like this, the speaker series, is a great opportunity for me to hear from people like us, but make connections. But you just know that you're in the right space and you're in the right place to get started. And then from there, just don't quit and continue to have the confidence that you can be whatever it is that you choose to be in that industry. So last thing before I open up the questions, I like to have a lot of questions about what we're doing. I always leave with this. My grandfather was like one of the most influential people in my life. And my grandfather he told me two things. The first thing he told me is like, in so many words, like, Chris, there's no one on this planet that will ever stop you from being great but you. So just go be great. Like, no matter what that is, whatever would you think about it. And at that point in time when I was just kind of like twiddling my thumbs and doing stuff at AT&T before I looked to move forward or really like put myself out there to be recruited, uh, he asked me one day, he's like, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "I don't, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. Everything's cool. It's pretty decent." And he was like, "Oh, that's cool." Well, I'm gonna just tell you this: sometimes doing the right thing doesn't always mean doing the right thing. So if you understand, like, that understanding was instant. Like, in my mind, I'm doing the right thing because I'm just doing this, like, fairly decent job. It's a, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever. But I wasn't happy. So that wasn't me doing the right thing. Doing the right thing was me pursuing the dream that I had since I was 5. And he knew that. And so having just that, even just that one person that was there behind me to support me, definitely, like, I kept that in my mind. And then I lost my grandfather in 2015, but I always kept that in my mind. He's always kept me, been that voice in my head to keep me pushing towards, what that goal is. So sometimes the people who love you the most are going to try to, you know, protect you, quote unquote, right, from doing these things because they don't understand what the industry is. But this is a $200 billion a year plus industry. There's so many jobs and opportunities, like I said, from various disciplines, whether it be marketing, project management and program management, social media management, art, traditional art or 3D and tech art, if you're building worlds, engineering, level design, system design, narrative design, gameplay design. Like, there's so many different places and spaces that you can get into, that you could just kind of start from there. So I hope this was like a good overview of like my non-traditional path, nonsensical way of how I got into the industry. But ultimately, I said, at the end of the day, I'm blessed and privileged to be able to be here doing this. And it's also like a huge honor for me to be doing this for Delgado. Like I said, because it has such a very, very special place in my heart. So with that, appreciate y'all listening to me kind of like word vomit to you. So I'm gonna open it up for questions if y'all have anything.
Chris, we got a thank you in the chat.
Cool, from Jaquil. I appreciate that. I will also let me grab this. You have to be a person who, whenever you do these things, right? A lot of people come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, like, you got to be able to stay connected and build a network," and then they don't have any way to really like connect with you. So I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile in the chat so everybody can y'all can connect with me on LinkedIn, and that way we can have like direct conversations, just in case. And you can publish this out too when you publish out to the group. It just makes it easier for people to be able to connect with me, in case they missed this opportunity to speak, or they're just like camera shy and they didn't want to ask the question now and they want to ask it later. You have an opportunity to do so. You can always just like connect with me on LinkedIn. We can instant message on there. I'm always willing to talk and help.
Thanks, Chris. And as always, if you got a question, feel free to unmute, ask your question, or throw it in the chat. We can read it out for you. But if people don't have any questions, I could ask a few. So Chris, something I was thinking, here we go.
Hi, this is Cheryl Green. What year did your father work at Delgado in the print shop?
My dad worked at Delgado until, I don't remember when he started, being honest. It was the early 90s, and he did it until 2000, where they closed down print shop.
Yeah, I
he
know.
worked at the,
Yes,
yeah,
I've been here since 1997, so I probably have gone to the print shop and saw your dad.
Yeah, my dad is Mike Douglas. Unfortunately, I look just like him
Yeah.
enough to where people up to me on the street like, Mike, what are you doing? I'm like, my dad is 67 years old, sir. I know I don't look 67, and I
Yeah.
have a full head of hair. So
And
yeah,
I and
I
I
don't know
and
what
I
to tell you.
also taught at St. Aug 84, 85 school year.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
all. Yeah, I wasn't there yet. I
I
got
know
there in
you were not there.
95.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, I got there in 95. And then so my whole family went there though, and you would have just missed my uncle Curtis. He graduated in 81 or
Okay.
1980. 1980.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to thank you, man. Awesome story. You know, the transition, the moves, the lateral moves, the hustling. That's what people, you know, if you got something in your head you want to do, that's what it takes, man. So I appreciate you sharing all those things with us.
Yeah, no problem. I like I said, it is a very like indirect path. Most people that you talk to, believe it or not, I mean, probably about this is gonna be an estimated stat, so don't like go and like look it up and quote me like Chris is giving false information. But in my estimation, in my mind, based on all the people I know, only about 30% to 40% of people that I know that work in the industry actually started out or went through. I went to DigiPen, I went to the Guild Hall, I went to USC or whatever for like game development. I went to Full Sail. Like there's not really a large amount of people as such that get into the industry in that way. A lot of people get into the industry just from being a tinkerer, right? I downloaded Unreal Engine Warfare, right? Way back before Unreal Engine 3 and all those things. And I just started kind of like messing around in it and building stuff. And then eventually you just submit, something to any of the different studios or, what have you, and then they'll kind of to put you on. I will tell you something that most studio heads have told me and what they will tell to anyone that's looking to get in the industry. Um, it is a competitive field. So you're gonna have people like I went to this university, and then I have my amazing resume that I spent hundreds of dollars getting somebody to help me write, right? And they go to submit that. That person submits an application. You as a person, like I have my resume that I built myself, but I have a portfolio of all the work I've tinkered and I've made games and I put them on itch.io, or I have just like a portfolio of just models that I've built or recreated from some of my favorite things inside of Unreal or Unity or Autodesk and Maya. And then they have all of those things that they put together showing like I've actually tried to build a level. It's not the greatest game, it's not the greatest looking thing, but I have something to show. Those studio heads will pick that person rather than picking the person that has like this fancy resume, with a basic portfolio of things. So if you are looking to get into it from that way, like be a tinker. If you're looking to be a game designer, right? And you play a lot of games currently, that's actually a good thing because if you start to sit down and start to play games from a technical standpoint, like I really like this gameplay mechanic because it does XYZ, but I don't like these things. So you start to do like your own review of games and then you can publish them wherever you want. Like then you have, your own set of works that you can start building from there as well. And most of the groups are like y'all know if you start talking to people who play games and you're like, hey, what's your favorite game? They're like Elden Ring, and here's why. And they want to tell you all the reasons why they love Elden Ring, or all the reasons why they love, whatever is the new thing that they're playing at the point. Like Cult of the Lamb is another really big indie game, and a lot of people love. Right? They're gonna tell you why they love those games. So that's the instance of me just like, hey, you should definitely reinforce or think about, just being a designer, being a narrative designer or being a gameplay designer, early levels with that, and then you start learning different things inside of the tool set. So Unity and Unreal both have like packages that you can go and download, and you can start testing like combat scenarios and stuff. So you just start playing with stuff, even if it breaks. It doesn't matter. Like just go in there and start trying to figure these things out, and that's gonna always help you get to that next point. But yeah, stay dedicated and stay committed to it. If you really want to do this, you can definitely find a way to do it. But dreams don't work unless you do. You can have a dream, cool, but if you are not putting in the work and you're not putting in the investment of time into that dream, um, you're not. Regardless, you're not gonna get there. So, yeah.
Cool, man. Hey, just tell my wife that playing video games is important, okay? Because she thinks I'm wasting time, right?
No, yeah, everyone does, right? Everyone's like, oh, why are you wasting all of this time? Funny story too. Most people are the same way. Like, so I worked in the store, in the retail store in Lakeside Mall, and we had it. So you get a pretty large footprint of people, and we did that Fortnite Friday every Friday. We had Fortnite tournaments, and all the parents were like, I bring my son and my daughter here every Friday. They're playing every Friday. I'm wasting my time here, and then they make the announcement that the 16-year-old kid won $3.1 million at the Fortnite World Finals, and everyone's like, they need to be here on Friday because they gotta, it's like, yeah, so it's a whole different ball game there, right? So
Yep.
everyone will always find they're gonna find stuff for it, but it's a mind share thing. I would challenge you, like, it's a shameless plug, but there's a lot of stuff in Game Pass that are like that's family friendly, that's co-op, it's related. So like just challenge them to sit down and like find a game that y'all can play together, and then start to see like how their mind changes about like what games are, how much fun they can have playing games. Most people don't even realize, like, as a gamer, it's like, oh, I'm not really a gamer. It's like, you're not a gamer, but you have 11,000 hours in Farmville. Like, you're a gamer, like, whether you like that or not, that's what it is. Like, even if you just play one title, but you play that title consistently, it's a mobile game, whatever. Games are games. So it's just about finding like those experiences, and the industry will continue to change and grow, and we'll start to see more uh varied experiences for people to just sit down and enjoy together. So that's a cool part about it. But yeah, like, tell your wife Chris said that it's really cool to play video games.
Chris, I have a question. So like, in your position in the industry, you've been exposed to a lot of different studios, roles, organizations. Are there any jobs, you shared that experience of probably reading like Game Pro magazine and like getting a feel for the industry, right? But like, where you are now, are there jobs you're like, whoa, I never would have thought that was related to this industry? Or do you see certain roles starting to come up that like maybe people wouldn't think about, or like, there's a need, but people aren't there yet? Like, I know games are always moving into, there's new skills that need to be developed. Are there any that you're like, whoa, that's surprising or interesting?
As one of the things that was surprising for me is, like, as a working for a company that is a platform holder in the space. So we have release managers. So it's basically a lot of people who've been like in sales backgrounds. They do something that's called customer success management, and usually in that role, it's a B2B style thing. You are the representative for the customer to talk about all of the things that they want the end product to do, on their behalf. Hey, we're in this space in banking, and we want our app that runs on Azure to do XYZ. There's a customer success manager that helps to bring all of their concerns or things that they think will be better for their whatever they're doing, the technology in their environment. There's a release manager who goes in and is like, hey, let's help you make sure that you meet all the milestones to submit your builds for certification. You're having issues with one of the platform tools that we're using for you to be able to upload your stuff. Let's talk about that. Hey, you're getting ready to start to submit your stuff, and you got this key art with like really risky imagery. That's probably not going to work in these particular places around the country, or in the world. If you're trying to sell your game internationally, you're going to have issues with ratings boards or something there. So there's people that's literally there just to help people release their games from both an independent and a AAA perspective. Just help them release it into the marketplace. Make sure that they're meeting milestones. Make sure that they're removing any barriers of entry that would have them have a bad launch, or a bad route to launch to get there. So that was one of the things I was like, that is really cool, that we just, I guess even from like an Xbox perspective, I'm speaking from that specifically. That's really cool that we have people that are there just to help make sure that every customer that we have as a developer, they just have a really good experience being able to get their game on the platform, into the marketplace, help them make sure that they're set up for success. Their downloads work on time. We have all of the packets that you need. So when your game goes to launch, you don't have to worry about anything. It's just going smoothly into the market. So that's a cool thing. Also, I don't know why you never think about it, but there's like plenty of HR positions. So if you're like an HR professional, like, there's You know, there's plenty of people who do like HR, community management. That was really cool. Social media management and marketing. There's literally somebody sitting behind a Twitter handle that does all of those different things. So, like in Exile is Matt Amy. Matt is, so when you see all those like really funny tweets from Matt, he's just got that personality. It's like, yeah, man, like I've just been a jokester my whole life, and everyone's like, you're never being taken seriously, so you'll never get a job. And now I just get to like do cool stuff and tweet about video games all day. So, but there, I mean, there's business related things to it, but those types of personalities fit that really well. You know, people who are like meme machines, right? All you do is like send memes all, like that's ridiculous. You can probably find a job as a social media marketing person, or um you know, in somewhere in doing those types of things. So um yeah, like that's like a very small instance. The rest of it is just like, you know, like I said, more in a traditional sense, where you have like 2D artists, concept artists, technical artists. And that was another thing that I didn't know. I thought an artist was just an artist. And I thought artists did like everything. I thought they did concept art and then they did like the world building and everything else. There's actually like a technical artist who does like the 3D building of that work. There's a concept artist who all they do is concept art. And then there's like, you know, depending on the game feel or what engine they're using or what their overall aesthetic is going to be, there's 2D artists that they can use there. So there is a push that a lot of artists are like, hey, it's probably good for you to still use ZBrush and Blender and Unreal and you know, any of those types of engines still as a traditional 2D artist, like learn that stuff. But there's plenty of opportunity for you to do that in that space.
We got a question from Ron in the chat. How do you see the future of the industry as an insider?
That's always a great question. That's a very difficult question for me to always answer. Uh, the industry changes so rapidly that it's a lot of times it is very hard, even from my my position. It's very hard to just say the industry is going to go here and trend here in the next 5 years, right? It usually changes. Technology changes, you know, almost like once a day, once a week. There are different changes that can happen and advancements that can be made inside of the industry. Um, I think that a lot of things that the video game industry, once again, this is my personal opinion, things that change in technology, I think happen because of video games. Advancements that they make in, like, we're making smaller, more powerful like chipsets. They're making smaller, more powerful like graphics, things like that are happening inside of that push. Like other industries take advantage of, like, you know, different like car companies with 3D modeling assets. So now they're doing stuff in VR and they want to do metaverse related things. Like there's always these people, like think people are always going to try and do or see whatever the next big thing is. From my perspective, like I said, it changes so rapidly, so drastically. Like I never will be the person to like put my eggs in one basket. Like I just kind of sit back and say, oh, that's really cool. You know, everybody thought that VR would be the next major thing 5 years ago, and it's still kind of like figuring out its way still. So it's one of those things that this industry, it's a cool thing because there's so many wide varieties of places that the industry can go. There's no really like, hey, it's going here and I see it. I first see it going here. The people who usually do stuff like that, they get paid like the really big bucks. You know what I'm saying? So they have a much better understanding of like, I see the technology roadmap and what we're building, and this is probably what we will see for the future. For me, I appreciate you calling me insider, but I'm probably not. I'm just like, you know, a regular dude that just works, you know, at the company. And a lot of times the super secret stuff I see either an hour before the world sees or at the same time. So yeah, the future is cool because it's bright. From a software related perspective, I see independent games being the thing that is leading the industry. So right now, all of these different independent games are the games that are leading the industry. Because the experiences are different and they can take risks and chances that other game companies cannot. You will always have a like military shooters, you'll always have sports games, you'll always have isometric strategy games. Like those things will always happen. And a lot of those are like big AAA style games that come out. But stuff that I personally played over the course of like the last Yeah, like Young Souls is really dope. Death's Door, Cult of the Lamb. I just started playing Moon Scars yesterday. Proteus is like an old school Doom based shooter. Like these are stuff that I'm playing. It's like smaller games, quote unquote, but like it's the best thing. They're changing the industry. To me, I have more fun, and these are more memorable experiences playing that than playing a iterative annual or biannual title.
Well, I got something here. Man, Chris, it's an honor to know you, man. You're the embodiment of New Orleans in game design and development, like 100%. And your hard work totally pays off and shows through. And I want to remind everybody that when Chris got the break in game camp, that was when Hurricane Zeta came through in 2020. And our team was already kind of scattered and stuff. And I took a few minutes and I was like, oh man, Chris is managing all these teams. Like that's a tough job, man. Like that's serious, you know? So when you talk about hard work, Chris is, man, you're on it. But I have a serious question to ask you. Marvel vs. Capcom, who's your character?
All right. So first of all, I really appreciate that coming from Chris. So like I said, a lot of people don't know Chris is probably one of the most he's super humble. So he won't tell you this, so I'll tell you on his behalf. He's one of the most intelligent and one of the most well-respected developers in the state. Like he works just as hard as I do. So flowers to flowers. I really appreciate that coming from you, Chris. It means a lot. So for Marvel vs. Capcom, the first one, if we're doing one and not two, so one, old school, I went Ryu, and then I would also play I kind of would teeter back and forth between this run. Like I might run Spider-Man set, might run a Chun-Li set. It really depends on who I would play. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I didn't have like the MSP team, which is, for everybody does know that, it's like Magneto, Storm, and Psylocke was like the team, or Magneto, Sentinel, Psylocke. Like that was the team that a lot of pros played, Magneto, Sentinel, Storm. I played Cammy, Psylocke, and Iron Man, and I stuck to my guns. I never wanted to like change the way that I played and how I did those things. So it's a gift and a curse, because I would win a lot of tournaments, but then I would also lose a lot of tournaments because I refused to play Sentinel because it was a broken character. So
all right. I'm gonna get back to school, man. I'm gonna start working on the training. I know you're around. I see what's going on.
Yeah, man. I bought that arcade 1-up for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So I'm just waiting for it to come in so I can put it together. Like I'm gonna have some training sessions in the house. I'm gonna go through it and see how it works.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Chris, I see some Halo stuff behind you. Dude, that was like my big one back in the day, right? Like that Xbox One Halo game. Did you get a chance to watch the series on what did they release it on? Paramount Plus or whatever?
Yeah.
What do you think about it? You saw it? What'd you think about it?
I think it's I think they did an incredible job for the daunting task of taking like this huge series, this huge character and franchise, and then bringing it into the real world. Like all of the animation, the stuff that they did with like Amblin Entertainment was, I mean, it's dope. Steven Spielberg's company, so of course it's like top notch. Action wise, is really good. I think they also did a great job of like, they wanted to, when you're doing something like this, it's a different route, so you're like humanizing a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I did enjoy watching it, seeing it. All of the action scenes are spot on. The side, like the way that they made everyone seem like they scaled so well is there. So I'm super excited about season 2. But I mean, full disclosure, like that's the only reason why I had Paramount Plus.
That's why I got it.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of cool getting the Halsey backstory too, like how she kidnapped all. I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but you know,
I would tell you, it's like getting into it too. So my bookshelf is over here, and I have like all of the Halo books as well. So like reading the books, you can easily like just do an internet search and you can see like what book should I read in what order if you really want to get into like the lore of Halo. So I think that I'm biased, of course, right? From even from the first game, I think Halo is probably one of my two favorite things, like game franchises of all time, is Halo and God of War. Like those are the two things that will forever be. I'm the investment that I have and connection that I have for various reasons. Like so with God of War, I just love that game. Like it did something different the first set of time with the first trilogy, and then the reboot. Like I'm a father. You know, my son is 17 now, and you know when God of War came out in 2018, it was at that cusp of him being a teenager, and he's always been a great kid, so it's never been like that. But it's me trying to figure out like, listen, I want to be tough on you, but I don't want to, you know, be super overly aggressive. So I connected with Kratos and Atreus in that way and on a deep level. And then like with Cortana and Halo, my mom, you know, has been like my Cortana throughout my whole life, right? She's been a person that's like kept me around, kept me safe, kept me moving in the right direction. So, you know, it is a lot of luck that happened, but like having someone, you know, like that well, at least in the early games, I would say like, yeah, it's my mom. And then it became like a love interest thing. I was like, well, that's a weird analogy, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm
man,
saying?
I had
But
a
like,
crush on Cortana. I have to admit. So
right. So like it's just those two games are they're great. And I think that it's also an opportunity to see like how these brands grow into transmedia. So you start to see like I said, there's books, there's comic books, there's graphic novels, there's a TV show, you know, there's things expanded to movies. So it's showing you like the power of video games all up as a whole. Like there's so much room for growth in our industry. There's so much opportunity for us to do new, cool, different things, whether it be in a driven interactive experience or if it's, you know, the world and the lore grows into like into transmedia in that space. So there's so much room for us to be able to do all of these things in the industry. And I'm just like I said, I can't be more proud of like being able to be here. Like this I'm literally living a dream and doing what I want, you know, and I want to share all of the knowledge and all the things that I have with everyone else so they can have that same feeling.
it's awesome, dude. Really appreciate you stopping by the career series to I'm Alex McMillan, by the way. I took over for Tracy for IT the chair. So
Yeah.
I'm not just
Awesome.
some random dude that just popped in. But appreciate you sharing your story, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, I have to come and meet you in person, Alex. I spoke with Tracy King a good bit, and yeah, like I said, like Delgado is very close to my heart. And all this, like I said, I met a couple of students. We had a team of students from Delgado that came through game camp as well, and to see their work and to see, you know, how hard and how dedicated they are. And a lot of them, you know, this is another thing like to build this confidence. A lot of them are like, hey, this is my first, I'm a freshman, this is my first time doing anything in video games, and you should be able to come and be in this space and it should be safe. And that's another great thing about like what we do at camp, and we want to see other places kind of like do the same thing, is we want to build an environment that makes it safe for you to fail in, if that makes sense. So you can make mistakes and you can do things wrong, because you're gonna make mistakes and do things wrong. But we want to do it in a space where this is a great learning experiences. You know what I'm saying? You grow from failure. I always tell my son, you know, Batman Begins, fantastic thing. Why do we fall, Bruce? Right? It's so we can get up and we can do it again. And that's a good part about like all of the different changes and things that we learn about the industry, is like, how do we make these things better? How do we get to a point where we're able to continue to keep pushing forward and make it happen, make it work? So
Failure, powerful motivator, man.
yeah, for
I
sure.
try to drill that into my students too, man. Like, look, this is a safe space. I'd rather you say something, and I don't want to say stupid, but say something that doesn't quite make sense in front of me than go out and say it in front of your boss and maybe not get that promotion, you know?
Right, right.
So
I want to be some of the I want to be part of that change that allows people to have grace, right? You should be able to still be your most authentic self and say something and feel a certain type of way, you know. And there's always levels of professionalism that I want to try and help people like build that part of that skill. But you can be professional and be who you are, right? So yes, let's do these things, let's have these conversations. But that one conversation that you get to have with you, you know, in that safe space, is going to be the thing that like helps them build that, you know, ultimate skill and poise that they would have like later on in the history. And it also is going to build their confidence to know like, hey, I can go and have these conversations with, I can sit in front of an executive and have a conversation about explaining my work or what my plan is or what my solution would be without feeling like, oh my God, I'm sitting in front of this executive, like what's going to happen. It shouldn't be that. You should be their people. Everyone that I know puts their pants on or put their clothes on the exact same way for the most part. Like we all have, you know, the same type of thing that we're doing. So you're not that much different from anyone else. You shouldn't treat yourself like, oh, I'm this highly figure and everyone should be, you know, doing those types of things. This is games. It should be fun. We should have a great time. We should be connected to each other. We should be a real community amongst each other. And so I just want to make sure that we always continue to do those types of things. And I'm like I said, I'm privileged to be at the space at Xbox Game Studios with my boss Peter Zetterberg and Matt Booty is our executive sponsor, that they really support us and make sure that we are kind of helping to, like I said, amplify the next set of game creators in the world, like all across the world. So once again, thank y'all for having me. Really, really appreciate me being able to share my time and my story with you.
Just one last quick one, Chris. What's the schedule after Korea? Are you coming back? You gonna do something in New Orleans again? Like where?
Yeah, so Korea in
I'm just trying to, you know, this is a self-interested, you know.
Yeah, I would tell you to always watch xbox.com/gamecamp. We have some locations that we'll be in next year that are not announced yet. So as we get closer to that time, we will make those announcements. And then everybody will get to see like what we get to do next. But it's tough for me sometimes. I always want to say, oh, I want to do this in this particular place.
Keep us on the list.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Chris. Unless anybody's got any last minute questions, that brings us to about time. Chris, thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks, Nicholas. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Alex, for having me. Really appreciate it. All of the students there, thank you. Like I said, you have my LinkedIn. You can connect with me. It's just Christopher Douglas on LinkedIn. Feel free to you know, like I said, send me a connection, send me a DM. You know, hey, I just got this question, Chris, or what's your experience been like? You want to set up like a 30-minute informational with me? I'm always willing to do that. Be like I said, because at the end of the day, it's about supporting each other and helping each other out. When I kind of went through this, and I'm sure like Chris and Nicholas can probably tell you this too, as we went through and did these things, a lot of times like the industry was more gate kept and no one wanted to really tell you how they got to where they are. And that's why they work so hard to open this up and they're doing the work that they're doing. So definitely you have three great resources right here in front of you or at your university. Talk to them. Like let them be, you know, the place where you can talk to me. If there's somebody I can connect you with in the industry, I'll do my best to connect you with them. So I don't want it to be a one-off thing like, hey, you did this thing, that's cool, see you later. You know, like I want it to be a real sense of community. And like I said, I'm born and raised here. I'm from here. I know what it's like. I know what the challenges are. You know, I'll try and help you navigate them the best I can.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no problem.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to capture this recording. We're going to put it up on YouTube. We will share Chris's contact information on LinkedIn. Any final thoughts?
Now, like I said, once again, just thank y'all for allowing me to come and talk to you. Thank you for all of the grace that y'all show to all of your the teachers and the admin and everyone here. Like I said, they do a lot of work for you. So definitely make sure when you see Nicholas and you see Chris, you see Alex, or just send them like an email, like, hey, like, thank you for the stuff that you do. Because it takes a lot to put these types of things together and get people involved just to come here for an hour. There's a lot of work that happens in the background. Just like Chris alluded to earlier, like trying to keep up with a lot of people at once and make sure everybody's where they need to be or to get the help they need. That takes a lot. So definitely thank y'all for all of the work that you do for our local game development community. Just keep going and keep growing. Appreciate it.